Have you ever just walked away from a conversation and felt completely physically drained of all your emotional energy? Or, maybe you found yourself doing something you really didn't want to do, but for some reason, you just felt obligated to do it anyway. Well, I really want you to stop and ask yourself, are your thoughts truly your own, or is someone else secretly pulling your strings?
Welcome to this explainer on dark psychology. Today, we're going on a fascinating and honestly, a kind of terrifying journey straight into the minds of manipulators. We're going to uncover the secret techniques that these so-called energy vampires use to completely control their environments. But more importantly, we're going to learn exactly how you can build an absolute, unbreakable shield against them. All right, so here's our roadmap for this explainer. 1. We'll meet the Dark Triad. 2. We'll dive into the art of manipulation. 3. Reverse psychology secrets. 4. The brainwashing blueprint. And finally, number 5. Defending your mind. So let's kick things off with section 1. Meet the Dark Triad, or as I like to call it, the Bermuda Triangle of personality. Take a look at the powerful contrast here between the mask and the true face beneath it. People with these dark traits, they are absolute master deceivers. Take narcissists, for example. They're often described as snake charmers, because at first glance, people genuinely love them. They seem super confident, attractive, really spontaneous. But underneath all that charm is a very cold, deeply calculated interior. They're essentially wearing a mask to hide their true goal, which is simply to be admired and to gain absolute power over you. Let's break down exactly how these 3 very distinct profiles operate. First up, you have the narcissist. They're driven entirely by ego, constantly craving external validation, and they have this wildly grandiose view of themselves. Then you've got the Machiavellian. These folks are cool, incredibly calculating, and deeply cynical. They don't really care about impressing you at all. They just want to figure out how to use you to get what they want. And finally, the psychopath. Fearless, impulsive, and totally prone to treating other human beings just like disposable objects. And the one chilling thread that binds all 3 of them together, a profound total lack of empathy. Moving right along to section 2, the art of manipulation. We are exposing their playbook. See, manipulators actually use your most basic human needs against you. For instance, they'll manipulate love by setting up artificial triangles just to make you jealous. Or they'll manipulate fear by constantly moving the goalposts, making sure you never quite feel secure. And get this, if you actually catch on to their game, they'll instantly play the victim to weaponize your own compassion against you. They meticulously inject this deep, deep self-doubt, pointing out your flaws until you feel literally too weak to leave. And finally, they weaponize your guilt, basically feeding off your emotional energy until you're left completely drained. The thing is, manipulation is rarely ever a direct order. It's way more like a coded language. So we really need to learn how to translate these toxic phrases to understand what they actually mean. For example, when someone says, "If you don't do this, I won't love you," they are literally putting love on a scale. They're treating it like a transaction. What they're really saying is, "I want to control your choices, and I am fully willing to use your affection for me as the weapon to do it." And honestly, we see this exact same tactic happen in the workplace all the time. Imagine a boss casually mentioning, "Hey Masha, HR just sent me a resume for a super promising young employee with your exact profile." Now, that sounds like a totally simple, harmless observation, right? Wrong. Fear is subtly being weaponized here. The real translation is, "You are entirely replaceable, so you better comply with my demands or you are out." It's perfectly designed to induce panic and establish absolute dominance. All right, that brings us to section 3, reverse psychology secrets, the illusion of choice. So, manipulators absolutely love to exploit something called your natural human reactance. Reactance is basically that stubborn, gut-level urge you feel when someone tells you that you cannot do something. Manipulators know exactly how this works. By artificially restricting your freedom or telling you that you really shouldn't take a specific path, they somehow make that exact path seem totally irresistible to you. And just like that, you walk right into their trap, completely convinced that the decision was your idea all along. It is the ultimate illusion of choice. Now let's look at section 4, the brainwashing blueprint, methodical mind control. To really grasp this, you have to understand the sheer apathy of the Dark Triad. Researchers actually ran this wild experiment where people were given the chance to grind up live bugs in a modified coffee grinder. And shockingly, some of these individuals, everyday sadists basically, didn't just comply with the request. They actively asked to do it more. They were perfectly willing to cause harm, not for any personal gain, but literally just for the fun of it. When you're dealing with someone who views you as nothing more than an object for their own amusement, trust me, they won't hesitate for a second to completely dismantle your mind.
Because here's the thing, brainwashing isn't some kind of dark magic. It's terrifyingly methodical, and it usually happens in 3 very distinct phases. Step 1 is tearing down the self. This is where the manipulator isolates you and just relentlessly attacks your core identity and beliefs until you're drowning in guilt. Then comes step 2, the breaking point. This is when you become entirely disoriented and completely lose touch with who you actually are. And finally, step 3, rebuilding the self. Right when you are at your absolute lowest point, the manipulator swoops in offering salvation. They reshape your beliefs so they perfectly align with their own agenda. Okay, let's turn things around with section 5, defending your mind, forging your shield.
Now, we're pivoting completely from victimhood to empowerment. Because just understanding these terrifying tactics is really only half the battle. If you truly want to avoid falling into the trap of a dark personality, your ultimate goal has got to be achieving healthy emotional independence. You want to reach a state of calm clarity, kind of like a pool of perfectly still water. A state where your self-worth is completely untethered from the manipulative whims of toxic people.
So how exactly do you achieve that? Well, you have to actively practice a few key defense strategies. First, set clear, absolutely unbreakable boundaries. You have to fence your space so they realize early on that they just can't penetrate it. Second, whatever you do, do not react with anger. Anger is exactly the fuel they want you to give them to power their manipulation. You have to stay incredibly calm. Take a step back, reassess the true value of that relationship in your life, and most importantly, practice the word no. The minute you stop cooperating with their tactics, you completely block their power.
Listen, if you only remember one single thing from this entire explainer, please make it this. Whenever you feel this sudden spike of anxiety or fear, or just an inexplicable weird urge to comply with someone's request, use this powerful question as a mental circuit breaker. Why am I doing this? Seriously, ask yourself, did I actually decide to do this myself, or did this solution just magically appear from nowhere? Asking this simple question forces you to become an active observer of your own mind, and it stops manipulation dead in its tracks. All right, you now have the knowledge you need to read these behaviors, protect your precious emotional energy, and maintain your absolute freedom of thought. But remember, it requires constant vigilance. So, as you step back out into the real world and interact with the people in your life, I want to leave you with this final, incredibly vital question to always keep lingering in the back of your mind. Who is really pulling your strings?